Well, hello everybody. This is Daniel with Daniel's Bullion Coins. I have my sweet wife Ingrid here today.
Hi there.
And we're going to take some questions and some comments and
Yes.
see what we can get into today.
Okay, first we want to do the weekend review. So what did you see kind of at the shop?
Yes, so it's been really quiet. So we're in
Yeah.
an antique mall here, so we get to see both sides of the economy, people spending. We get to watch that from antiques and bric-a-brac things here, and that's been really quiet. And our sales have been really quiet. Even gold has been really, really quiet. So quiet that we were selling 1 ounce bars of silver at $30.
Cash.
Cash.
Always
yes,
cash.
yes. You know, because, and it was funny, it was our regular customers that came in and got those deals. Because it's funny, during the holidays, people tend to disappear from the antique, from the coin
Yeah.
business. They don't think about their finances, which is fine. So it may be a little bit of the Easter overlay or whatever, but we've definitely been quiet here. Gold sales are way down.
Yeah. Well, why do you think there was a big drop? You kind of touched on it.
Yeah, there's a big drop. We hit that 3,500 in gold, and then gold pulled back, I think close to $400, 350, something like that, and
Yeah.
had a big drawdown, 10%. So that's a 10% correction that we had.
Right.
And there were a lot of variables that went into that. Holiday again, so we saw a big slowdown, and it's a 2-weekend holiday. You know, if you have just a 1 weekend
true.
like Mother's Day or something like that, it's not such a big deal. But this was 2 weekends, sort of like Christmas and New Year's.
And a lot of kids had their spring break in
Yes. So you had a lot
So they
of that.
travel a little.
Families doing things. So that slows things down for gold and silver sales. Then you had the China markets were closed.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is a huge opportunity for the banksters to manipulate the
Yeah.
price down. So they stepped in and did their hammering, and I even mentioned it to Ingrid. I wish I'd put it on the video, to expect a huge drawdown.
Yeah.
And I even mentioned it to one of my customers. It was 34 something, close to 35, and I said, "Oh no, it's going back to 32." And he couldn't understand why I wouldn't.
3,200.
3,200,
Yeah.
3,200, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't understand why what I was paying was very, very cautious.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it turns out I was right. 3,200 is our floor. Now 3,500 is the ceiling, so expect us to see the next leg up, and then 3,500 will be our floor. Now that'll be next month, next 30 to 45 days
Yeah.
of keeping an eye on things.
So do you think China had something to do with it too?
Yes, China had a lot to do with it being closed.
Yes.
Their markets being closed, and the bullion banks, they see that as a huge opportunity to step in and manipulate. And if you watch, we've talked about it before, they always pick a certain time, and
Yeah.
they'll use that same time for months. And right now they're using 8:30, 9 o'clock as their hammer time.
Our Eastern time here.
Our
yeah.
Eastern, right, Eastern, thank you.
Yeah.
Eastern time, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So it used to be 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We've seen over the years 4 o'clock in the morning is
Right,
a real
that's when
common
mainly
time.
we've seen it.
Mainly it's been 4 o'clock in the morning, some 6 o'clock. Right now, 8:39, you can look right at it and see it getting hammered down. And that's when they chose to hammer it, because the markets were thin then. And interest was down, like I'm saying.
Right.
Even at our small shop, it was down. And so they use that to really
Right.
hammer the price. But as we get past, get into May, we'll start to see that 3,500 return, and then 3,500 will become the floor, and we'll go on from there. And I'm still saying 4,000 by the end of the year, and maybe possibly 4,500 by the end of the year for gold.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be really something.
Wow.
And that's
wow.
without a black swan or major event,
Yeah, which
which could
things
happen.
are so volatile right now. That kind of brings
Very
me to
volatile.
that. I know not only the peace accord kind of thing fell through, but
Yes.
we also want to talk about Trump's first 100 days.
Yes, so
That's
the
kind
peace.
of been in the news lately.
Yes, this is the marking of the 100 days of the Trump administration, and so there's a lot going on there. The peace accord with Russia is hitting a lot of roadblocks and problems. We did
Yeah.
get a mineral deal with
Yeah.
Ukraine, but the problem is, if Russia takes over
Yeah.
Ukraine, that money will be gone.
Right.
Europe will you lose all the money they've put in, and we'll lose the money we've put in. So we do have a vested interest there. Trump is talking about pulling out. And another, speaking of another global geopolitical is Japan. Keep an eye on Japan. They seem to be siding with China now.
Oh my.
Yeah, they even came out and said and threatened the U.S. with its treasury holdings. So they were printing yen and buying treasuries. So they have like $1.25 trillion worth of treasuries, and now they're talking about siding with China, and they even throwing out threats. Well, the U.S. has the ability to shut off massive selling.
Yeah.
But we're very close to our 5% that Scott Bessent is concerned about. So if Japan and China join forces, if China gets one more country to go with it, we could have an Eastern bloc starting to develop.
You mean like the terrorist part, or them
Combating the
BRICS.
tariffs.
The BRICS,
Yeah,
okay.
and I think the BRICS has really almost fallen apart.
Yeah.
It's just with India pulling out of the BRICS. That was like that was it for the BRICS nations.
Oh, wow.
That ended that. But the Asian bloc is starting, which is really odd, because you look at the history of Japan and China. Of course, we bombed Japan, and there's lots of history there with China. And then you got Taiwan in there. So bedfellows gets pretty funny, right there.
That's true. That's
It gets
very
really
true.
interesting. So keep an eye on Japan. They're threatening us with using their $1.25 trillion card treasury that they have.
Wow. Yeah. Now, we were talking at home about the Trump, his first 100 days, and how he even said he's been years ago in his first administration. He said there was no gold in Fort Knox.
Yes. When he was running the first time as 45.
Yeah.
And they were interviewing him. He said, "There's no gold in Fort Knox."
Yeah.
He said, "The gold is gone." So that's an interesting interview that he gave, and it was Mike Maloney. If you get a chance to go watch either one of his two most recent videos, they are fascinating because he takes Scott Bessent's comments from way back before he was Treasury Secretary and Trump's comments before he was even president, and he's putting it together.
Wow.
And what it looks like to me,
Yeah.
I'm adding what these new comments are to a new theory, and that is I've talked about the sovereign wealth fund and having a currency inside the nation here. But what I'm thinking, and I'm going to add to that, is that instead of trying to back our currency, our M2 currency, which is all currency in existence, it's money markets, it's speculation in the market, all of these things that can be lost really easily when the market draws down. But what they may do is take what's called M1, which is a part of M2, which is just the money that's in your pocket and in circulation, which is actually being used, which is a much lower amount of currency.
So is it the tangible dollar?
It's the tangible dollars.
Yeah.
It's what's in your credit card account. It's what's on your house payment. It's actual money and assets and things like that.
Okay, it's connected to.
Yes,
assets.
connected to something. It's not money that's in your 401k or your stocks or anything like that. They're just gonna. I'm thinking they're just gonna back the currency that's truly in circulation.
Oh.
So that would mean that gold would be $10,000.
Wow.
Rather than, some of these guys.
The reset they're going to talk
The
about.
reset, right.
Yeah.
They're talking about this reset. You go back and listen to Mike Maloney's videos and try to put it together. But I'm adding those videos to my theory, and I'm saying that they're going to take M1 and back M1 with gold, which would mean gold would only have to be 10,000.
Instead of 50
Right,
they were
50
saying.
or 60,000 in
Yeah.
order to cover all the derivatives that are out there, and this huge number. And then you break it into two currencies. So you still have the derivatives, and you still have the ETF market and all that, and the global reserve as a dollar. But then you have what I'm calling a citizen's currency, which will be backed by gold, and it'll be just what's in circulation, what you're earning, the money that you're earning every day, those types of things will be in that. And I want to interject here. I had talked about fair value, when to sell, and it's when the Dow gets 1 to 1. Now, I'm not calling for, a lot of people thought 20,000. I'm not calling for 20,000. The Dow could come down to 10,000 or 6,000, and then be one on par with gold. So not necessarily 20,000.
Wow,
even though that's the two of them meeting in the middle.
Market correction, huge.
Yes,
huge.
but we've done that before. We've been down that percentage before, and it'd be 10,000 that we would come down to.
Wow.
I mean, even 6,000 is a possibility.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, they could overshoot where gold goes much higher, depending on the severity of the situation.
So gold and the Dow would be even.
Even, one for one.
Oh
Right.
my
We've done that in
goodness.
history. We've gotten really, really close to that, and so that's what I'm looking at, and that's why I'm calling that number. And I think it may actually, overreact and overcompensate.
Wow.
Could go beyond that. But that's when you want to start thinking about maybe exchanging into other assets, because then land will be really cheap, businesses will be really cheap.
Wow.
One of my favorite books is 10 Acres is Enough. And that guy that's a great book if you get a chance to read that. It's back in the 1850s when the businesses, he could see that this currency was about to collapse.
That's right before the Civil War, yeah.
Right, before the Civil War. And so he sold his business and bought a farm, and then he could have bought the business back for pennies years later because he had this farm.
Oh my goodness.
And I learned a lot from that book. I'll
You've
tell you, one of the
talked a
things
lot
I
about
learned
that
is
one.
the fertilizer, which we need to do another
Yeah.
video on the fertilizer because that's a huge issue.
It is.
Let's do that
huge.
next week, fertilizer.
Okay. And people think, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
fertilizer?
that's huge. It's huge.
It
It
is
is
huge.
as important as the currency is the
Yeah.
fertilizer.
Yeah.
And we'll go in deep on that next week.
We've kind of touched on it before,
Yes,
about how
we
we
have.
get it from overseas.
Yeah, in one of our
and
other
kind of
videos,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, I was also going to ask you about the ratio between gold and silver right now is so
Oh my goodness.
high.
It's extremely high.
It's very volatile. Is that the word?
Yeah, I would say that brings volatility in when you
Yeah.
see that the ratio's up over 100. The only time we've been above 100, it's just once or twice, maybe 3 times, but the most notable was during the cough. We went to 120
Ew.
ratio. Yeah, that was unheard of. But being over 100 tells you that silver is a commodity to be in because it's telling you, and the market makers, they're looking at these things sort of like AMC and these and nickel. They saw nickel was manipulated way down.
Yeah.
Nickel went up 300%, 400% in one day. AMC, it caused foreclosures on a lot of hedge funds when
What's
the market.
AMC?
It was a company that's traded on the stock market, and it was a tech company.
Okay.
And it was like Blockbuster and all these other entertainment things.
Okay.
Like the movie theaters and all that. They were
Yes.
looking at them fading away because of digital technology and all in-home theaters.
Yeah.
And so the people were shorting it. And so the market makers came in and said, hey, this is getting shorted. We can start purchasing it.
Undervalued.
Right, it was way undervalued. Well, actually, it probably was not really worth much because it's movie theaters and all this. And so there was some, truth to the fact that it may not have, but it was manipulated down by
Okay.
short pressure. And so these guys came in and said, hey, let's buy AMC and we'll buy so much of it that it'll force the hedge funds to have to cover their shorts. So in order for them to cover, they have to come into the market
sounds so funny.
and buy
Okay.
more AMC, which they were, betting that it was going to go down. So when they have to buy it, that makes the price go up. Same
Oh
thing
my
with nickel.
goodness, so
Same thing with what
confusing.
we expect with silver. The market makers are going to say, hey,
Now, who are the market makers?
it's just people looking for profit.
The
I'm in the
ones-
market.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the
They're looking for penny stocks and that kind of thing.
yeah, penny stocks, anything that has the potential to go up.
Yeah.
Why is this so undervalued? And before it's always been things that had no roots, but silver has 6,000 years of roots
Yeah.
as proof, as a greater store of value than 100 to 1. Should be
Right.
10 to 1 or 15 to 1, however
Right.
you want to look at it. So the market makers, all of a sudden, they're going to realize, hey, let's put pressure on silver and buy it, and it's going to climb, because then the bullion banks that are shorting it, they'll have to go into the market to
Yeah.
buy to cover their shorts. So when they start buying, then it's an
It's
an
going up.
escalation
Yeah.
beyond what you can imagine. And I know people are always going to say, you've been talking about that for years and years. Well, 95% of your profit is made in the last 5% of your investment time.
Oh, you need to say that one again.
95% of your profit is made in the last 5% of your investment time.
Wow.
And that's how
Yeah.
it's going to be with silver. And the people who come in here and think that they're going to buy silver the day that it explodes higher, that's called catching a falling knife.
That would hurt.
And it's not going to be possible.
Yeah.
It's going to close and shutter instantly. When my guy tells me, hey, we can't keep up, and he's had done that before, turned off his internet connection, closed his doors, pulled the blind down, and said, hey, we're not doing it. And that's happened. We've seen that happen.
Yeah.
It was momentarily. It was
Yeah.
during the it was during the Obama administration.
Yeah.
So we've had days there where we didn't know which way it was going to go. But
Yeah.
it was very short.
Yeah. Wow. Well, then my next question is, what are some things we've seen that Trump is doing to
Okay.
improve and
Right.
the
right.
dollar
In order to turn this thing
turn
around
this
into a new
mammoth?
currency.
Yeah.
Right. And we've talked, we say drill, baby, drill, but it's drill, baby, drill. It's the peace talks. It's currency revaluation. What are some other ones?
He lowered the taxes. He's wanting to
Oh,
do
right,
that.
lowering the
I mean,
tax-
can you imagine
No.
if we
Doing away with taxes.
in that just
Not only lowering-
internal revenue be external revenue?
Right. There's a good one. Lowering the taxes.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones?
Deregulation.
Okay,
I have written
deregulation,
down.
yeah, that's a huge. I mean, businesses that are strapped with these regulations, he's reducing those down, and really, we're way over regulated. People say, oh, we need to protect the environment. No, it's not true. You're buying products from a country that has no regulation
Exactly.
at all on coal and natural
Right.
gas burning, and they polluting the planet, and yet we have clean coal. And we responsibly do these things.
Yeah.
So let's do it here and do it responsibly. Reduce
Right.
regulation down to a reasonable level.
Yes. Also, on national security is huge.
Huge national security. There you go, the minerals and things. If we're not digging up our own minerals in our own country or have them locked in from Greenland or Ukraine, we've got to have our national security. That's why our defense is the one thing that he's adding
The
more
wall.
money to.
I mean, the
wall.
wall. We've
more
hardly
defense.
had any. There has been some
Oh,
people
it's
getting over,
better.
but it's down like 99%.
Yes, and the ones that are coming over are truly medical or really, if it's so small.
He's talking about the wall, the ones
Right.
coming over illegally.
And
That's
Canada,
down
we
so
need to
far,
secure
yeah.
that, and that's gotten really ugly with Canada,
Ugh.
going very liberal,
Yeah.
with it. But
Ugh.
now that guy says, hey, let me come meet with you, Trump. We need to, the minute the election was over, now he wants to meet. He's coming to. So that's going to be interesting.
That will be
I forget his name, the new
Carey.
prime minister. Prime Minister.
Carey, but I can't remember his first name.
Right,
Something
but he's
Carey.
the liberal,
Yeah.
and he's coming to D.C. to talk with Trump sometime
Yeah.
this week, I believe.
Wow, that'll be
Yeah.
something to watch.
Yeah.
That's
So we
good.
appreciate everybody coming in. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thanks,
Be blessed.
everybody.
Take care.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.